Good afternoon, and welcome to the Thursday, March 13th meeting of the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee for the Town of Penfield. I'm Cynette Cavaliere, the chair of the committee, and I would like the rest of the committee to introduce themselves, starting with Pat.
I'm Pat Schichler, member of committee, and for those of you that watch regularly may notice that we've rotated chairs just to keep you all on your toes, and us too.
Cheremeteff, member of the committee.
Steve Daly, member of the committee.
John Bennett, member of the committee.
Rygg, member of the committee.
Katie Rygg, member of the committee.
Matt Prinzing, Town Staff Liaison, Planning Department.
Okay. Our first order of business is the review and approval of minutes of the February 13th meeting. Hopefully all of you have had a chance to review them. May I have a motion for their approval?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, is there any changes or discussion required? Okay, call for the vote.
Rygg,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Bennett,
Aye.
Daly,
Aye.
Cavaliere,
Aye.
Cheremeteff,
Aye.
Schichler.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And thank you again, Matt, for preparing those. Excellent.
Just one quick, I know that Cynette, when I first sent it to her, she said that there was some odd formatting and then some lines were bolded. Anyone else have that experience? I couldn't duplicate it on my end. Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Right.
Okay, then next is listed is the standing report of the MC Environmental Management Council, and due to the timing of that meeting and the minutes, I am holding off until next month for this past month's report. So we'll do hopefully a double duty next month on that. Next is a review of our required items, so town development projects.
There's no new town development projects for the EECC to review.
Okay. Requests from the town board.
There's no new requests from the town board at this time.
Okay. Clean energy community actions.
We have some community campaign events that we'll talk about, but just to kind of follow up, because the last couple meetings we've been mentioning that the NYSERDA and the Clean Energy Coordinator, they haven't given us any updates about accepting new submissions for completed high-impact actions. And I'll just pull up on the website here, because I know that we have a lot of new committee members and just want to make sure that all right. Well, I guess it's not opening the link. Katie, do you want to do a plug for the community campaign events that are happening this week?
This week?
Isn't there, we have, or sorry, in May, we have the two, if you want to promote those.
Yes,
Thanks.
thank you. So coming up in May, we have two classes, Clean Heat, Cool Savings, on May 15th, and it's running twice, once at 3 p.m. and once at 7 p.m., and these are hybrid. And they'll also be recorded, so if you sign up for the class, we can get you the recording. And then EVs 101 will be May 22nd, the following Thursday, again at 3 and at 7. Did that buy you enough time, Matt?
Yes, it did. So this is the Clean Energy Communities webpage, and that's the program update that's mentioning that as of November 7, 2024, they're not accepting submissions for completed high-impact actions. The town board and the town are still asking that we pursue the high-impact action items, high-impact actions that we're currently pursuing, such as the community campaigns, and we're hoping to get an update soon. And then also I was just going to pull up this, because we haven't really discussed with the new members of the committee what actions we have completed. So this is, and I'll share this in the minutes, this is just showing our area and the other clean energy communities, and if we hover over our little bubble here in a second, it will show all of the 9 high impact actions that the town has completed already. And so if you, again, I'll share this link out, you can review them. And then also, town residents can look at the high-impact actions that we've completed. So that's all I have for clean energy community actions at this time.
Okay, very good. That's cool to see on the map there.
Yeah.
We're famous. Okay, turning now to our old business. The first item is to discuss the EECC roles and responsibilities. It had dawned on us that we did that when we were first put together as a committee a year and a half ago, almost 2 years, well, maybe it was even 2 years ago now, wasn't it?
February 2023 was our first meeting.
Time flies,
As a
doesn't it?
joint?
Yes.
Yes, as
Oh,
the first meeting of the EECC. Yeah.
And since then, we have a significant number of new members, and you guys have seen this probably, but we wanted just to take the time because I think it's helpful to the public as well to understand what our committee is and does and what our role is.
Yeah, so January of 2023, through a town board resolution, this committee, the Energy Environmental Conservation Committee, was created. And it was a combination of the Conservation Board and the Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee. And in that resolution, this mission statement, which is on the town's website, was made. So the EECC's mission is to promote energy and environmental stewardship in the town of Penfield. This includes encouraging the conservation of resources, promoting the use of native plantings, and advocating for public policies that support sustainable development. In addition, the EECC is responsible for reviewing development projects in environmentally protected overlay districts, EPODs, to ensure that they comply with local and state regulations. And so, we established that at our very first meeting, and we just wanted to share that again so everyone's aware of what the mission of the EECC is. And just as an understanding that, the EECC, the members of it, they're appointed by the town board, and our agenda items are at the request of the town board. So this is kind of the order of operations for how items come before the EECC is that, and really it's how things operate for all town committees, so transportation and those other committees. Ultimately, there's a board of jurisdiction that when makes a request of one of the advisory committees, such as EECC, that they need information or some sort of reporting on some topic, and the committee does their reporting, their research, and then they vote on sending that report or information back to the Board of Jurisdiction. And so that's kind of how the order comes around. And a good example of this, can't quite recall the timing of like when Stephen and Neri came in, but with when the town board wanted to investigate climate smart communities, and we wanted to look at essentially the requirements of it and what benefits there would be to the town if we were to seek that designation. And so they requested that EECC investigate that. EECC, we looked at the information available on that Niagara website. We had individuals from, it was our Clean Energy Communities Coordinator, and then a representative of Climate Smart Communities came in and they gave a presentation on it. And ultimately, we wrote a letter and sent that letter, voted on and sent that letter to the town board, ultimately recommending at this time not pursuing climate smart communities, but pursuing a climate action and the mitigation plan, carbon mitigation plan, and so that's kind of how opportunities and actions come before, and the operations of how the EECC is designed to function.
Can I ask a question, Matt?
Yes.
So, understanding that generally we're advising the town board on specific items they're asking to be advised about, I guess my question is this. let's say there's something like, let's say, for example, climate smart communities, understanding the town board asked us to do that, but I'm going to use that just for an example.
Yeah.
Let's say someone on the committee here said, hey, this seems like something that maybe the town's interested in. As a committee, could we ask the town board if this is something we could look into? I mean, how much is there an avenue for seeking from the town board authority to do something?
I wouldn't say that, because this committee isn't an authoritative board. We're
Right. Advisory only. Yeah.
We're advisory, and so if there's a topic or, some grant, grants are a little bit different because a lot of the times, Sarah or, town staff are seeking those, and we present those to the town board, and so that's one way that you can bring it to town staff, and we can bring it to the town board. The other option is that, you're members of the public, you can go to town board meetings during their public participation and, mention that this is a topic that you think that the town should pursue, and then that may trigger, depending on the response from the town board, for them to ask that either first town staff look into it, and then we would provide any technical information back to them. And then if they decide, well, we want EECC to look at it too, then, and so those are really the avenues. So far, it's just like I know it's been brought up in the past of can EECC write a letter of we support this? And I think that, it, especially with, certain programs or, such as Climate Smart Communities or the Tree City USA Growth Award, it's going to take a lot of time to investigate that and figure out if those are projects that ultimately, if it's something that can be attainable by the town. Basic requirements for some of these may say that we are, but just the long-term impacts of, getting these grants or getting these designations, and then if those designations, if we're not able to qualify for them later on, what that may, mean to the town. So ultimately, we try and have any of those decisions made at the town board level for them to make the decision of, is this something that we want to pursue further? Is this something we want investigated? And then it's delegated to the committee from that, at that level. So,
But in the example of the climate smart communities, we actually were given more of the, does this make sense for the town to do? So we
Sure,
were asked
yeah.
to do the the floor level work in order to go one way or the other. So it was kind of well, it actually seemed very much like we were the ones that were starting it. But in actuality, we were the ones that were coming up with, is there enough for the town to actually ask us to proceed on it?
right,
So it's-
whereas Tree City USA, that was one that the town board mentioned that this is something that we want to pursue, and essentially gave the EECC they requested the EECC to start drafting a public tree law, as that was one of the first major steps that we would need to accomplish. And through that, we created the tree department, and we were already documenting the budget towards agricultural activities or tree care activities. And so, and then the Arbor Day proclamation was something that we were already actively working on, so.
But we
yeah.
did also recommend that the town come up with a forestry plan, right? So we've
Sure.
taken what they told us to do, and we did that, but then
Yeah.
because of that, we also recommended additional actions and
Yes.
additional items related to it.
Right.
So if there is something that comes up, it ends up feeling very organic because we have the support from the engineering and the planning department to kind of say, hey, this is really cool, something that we've discovered other towns are doing, we would like to be able to consider it. And they kind of somehow bounce it off and get it to a point where if it is something the town board would like to consider, then the ask kind of happens, and then we do get that task. So we've been involved in a lot of things throughout the years because of that, even though as this group's only 2 years old. The groups previous kind of got asked to do things that were
Yeah, like Tree City began with the old Conservation Committee.
Yeah.
Back there, and the same with Mayor's Monarch Pledge.
Yeah.
And, for instance, the town flower, or an idea for a town flower, that's sort of from here, but we would not be able to pursue without taking back and the town saying, yeah, let's look at this.
Right, yeah.
So I've never really felt like our hands have been tied.
So I guess the reason why I asked that question, and it relates actually to the discussion we had last time, which was about the town's transportation plan, which I understand is being reviewed by the Transportation Committee. It's their jurisdiction. And to me, I mean, that's a situation, and I think I probably said this on the record, but to me, that's an area where there is overlap in the respect that how transportation systems are operating in the town of Penfield implicates conservation and energy in the town of Penfield. And so to me, it's not that I want to step on Transportation Committee's toes, but to me, I think saying to the town board, I think there's expertise that our committee has to bear, that could bear on that issue and could be really valuable to the town of Penfield and the town board. That to me is more like, well, is that something that the committee could do, or is that something that Steve Daly needs to do? Just like say like, oh, there's this really great committee. Have you heard of it? The EECC.
Well, I think another thing to consider is that while the EECC and its mission are to, promote stewardship in the town of Penfield, and, a lot of what you're saying aligns with that mission, there are other portions of the town or other policies of the town that promote and promote environmental stewardship. So when looking at an active transportation plan, not only the town employees, but the consultants that are working with the town are also going to have to consider the items that are within the town's comprehensive plan, which there are sustainability and environmental goals and standards written into the comprehensive plan. And so, yes, this committee has this mission, and it seems that it would be relevant for them to comment on an active transportation plan. The other committees and other boards do have the context of the comprehensive plan that they need to consider whenever they're looking at something as significant as an active transportation plan. So, that could be a comment from you as just a resident to the town board, if you wanted to add that into a town board public participation session. But ultimately, I think that that's just understood that the town board acts through the comprehensive plan, and so does the town staff. It helps us instruct, how to go about progressing the town in the best fashion. So.
I guess, though, what I hear Stephen saying is you don't know what you don't know, and so without coming to this board or committee and the expertise of this group, how do you know that you're not missing some things that might be beneficial? Certainly wouldn't be any, maybe not even any advisement from this group, but just sharing of knowledge to those that are working, through, as you said, through the master plan, comprehensive plan, to just take advantage of this information. I don't know, Steve, did I kind of paraphrase you?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not so much that, the town's going to have to do what it's going to have to do under its town code and the comprehensive plan, right? And to me, like, the mission, our mission is right up there, and I think that mission is relevant to an active transportation plan. And to me, ultimately, if the town board says we don't want the EEC to look, that's their prerogative, they can do that. But at least, to me, I would at least consider saying like, well, what do you guys think about not having us to review it too? But to me, if it's literally only speak unless spoken to, then that's fine, that's what this committee will do. But if it is organic, which it sounds like it is, that like, hey, the EEC, there are members, some members of the EEC have an interest in doing this if the town board would like us to, and we think we have expertise to bear on it. What do you guys think about us having a review it? Without saying like we have to, or any of our recommendations would be required, or simply in an advisory capacity, but that's ultimately what I'm saying.
Sure, and I think that, I mean, our committee does have a town board liaison, and so, I mean, while he's not here this evening, he'll receive the minutes, he'll be able to review the video, and so I think that at the very least, you are being heard, and these comments are part of the public record now, and so I think that between, Kevin's presence at these meetings, they're aware that at least some of the members of the committee would want to comment on it, and it's essentially kind of in their hands, I suppose.
And I would say also your role as planning and Sarah's role as a sustainability, kind of also lends to that as well, because you would get led into if they required your support areas, and then if you kind of felt that it would be something, then I think you would have that liaison with Kevin to be able to say something backwards to him.
It's just that, I mean,
I guess I
Town-
don't feel like sustainability ever lacks, even if we don't, that consideration of sustainability lacks even if we don't get involved in things. And there's many, many times that we bring things up, and the two of you have said, yes, we've already managed that this way. If you look at the number of grants that get applied to, that we don't actually have to worry about. Sarah is actively seeking out grant potential for us and then linking into what actions need to happen for those grants.
right, yes. And Sarah is a liaison to the Transportation Committee, and so she'll be part of those discussions as well. So, I mean, when she comes back, obviously. So, but yeah, so I think that there's, clearly your comments have been heard, and I think that it's more just an understanding, and we're just trying to establish that these are the order of operations that, committees have been operating under with the town board, and yeah, it's not to say that it has to be absolute, or it's not that, like Hideo has said, that it's really just a one-way conversation where the town board acts. I mean, they are actively listening to public comments that are made at their town board meetings during the public participation session, but they also consider comments that are made by committee members during their meetings too, so.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
On the second paragraph down, it says the EECC is comprised and appointed of members and is vested with all the powers and duties of the Conservation Board under both the Town of Penfield Code and the applicable state statutes. What does that mean?
So there are requirements of conservation boards under state statutes. I'd have to look at those more closely, but when the Conservation Board was merged with Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee, the duties of both of those were incorporated together. And so I guess if you're looking for a more pointed answer on what those specific applicable state statutes that apply, I mean, there weren't any state statutes that I'm aware of that were specific to Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee, but there were some that applied to Conservation Board. But yeah,
I'm just wondering if what we've been saying about, the answer to Stephen's question, if that contradicts any of those vested powers and duties that were assigned
Sure.
under the Conservation Board.
Sure. Yeah, I can investigate that more and provide a more pointed answer to that.
And I would say, just based on knowledge, that our top three items, or two of the top three items, the town development projects and requests from the town board,
Right.
was a very specific responsibility and agenda item on the Conservation Committee,
Yes.
or Conservation Board
I
at
mean,
the
yeah,
time.
Pat, you were probably the longest standing member for the Conservation Board. Is that, yeah?
Yeah, that was it, but as you said, it's been a little bit of time now, and I know we had discussed Tree City and a tree policy, especially for years, to the point where I do not know, who originally
Right.
came up with it, and did have the feeling that it was the Conservation Board, but that we would bring it to, through, well, it would be Doug at that time, and to say, is this something the town board would want? And then we would have to wait and see, did they want us to pursue that? So I, did feel maybe there was, but I could be wrong, because a lot, as you said, there were also things that, were brought to us because, whereas we might have been working on tree policy anyways, I think it's staff that heard about Tree City. So,
Okay. Yeah, so Roy, I will follow up with you and the committee members to get more details. I may need to, actually, I'll definitely reach out to town attorney and make sure that we get clarification on that's any of those state statutes that apply to the vested powers of the Conservation Board that this committee has inherited.
and I think we used to review more projects. As I understand now, we're just reviewing ones with EPODs.
My understanding is that, I'd have to look back, but
Yeah, and I'm not aware
Right.
either, but.
I think that looking specifically at that town board resolution that created the, this committee, that it noted that the responsibility of the committee was to review those projects in the EPODs, so.
And that's fine. Not complaining about that.
Sure. I did want to talk briefly about the open meetings law. So if we're fine with that topic for now, understand that we will follow up on it. All right. So the EECC is considered a public body that is subject to open meetings law. Public body means any entity for which a quorum or a majority of members of the body is in session of, a majority of the members of the body is required in order to conduct public business. Every meeting of a public body shall be open to the general public, except that an executive session of such a body may be called. So essentially, these EECC meetings are certainly considered these meetings of a public body. The only times that generally you'll be meeting outside to discuss meetings of public business is when you're going out into the field to do the reviews for a town development project in an EPOD. Typically, we try and keep those groups to less than a quorum, so it's not considered a meeting of that public body. But ultimately, you're going out into the field, you're taking notes, you're conducting your research for that report, and then the report is presented when the public body meets again. And so that's that case where, although you're discussing the public business, or going out and conducting research for that particular town development project, you're bringing that back and discussing it before the public body. So that's a case where we're able to use that that method of going out, collecting information, and then reporting it within the public body, and that's fine with the open meetings law. But in terms of, this group getting together, and one thing that we've discussed is just when we're commenting on documents or emailing back and forth about the agenda or certain topics, we recommend that instead of, having conversational emails where they're back and forth about any type of what would be considered public business or something that EECC could make a decision on. You should rather, point questions to staff members, and we can provide response, rather than having, those conversational emails back and forth with each other about public business. I mean, again, as long as we bring those emails or, bring those discussions into the public body, into the public forum, again, that's fine because we're making those conversations public. But yeah, ultimately, if you're, considering something or have questions about public business, your best resource is to first come to staff and we can provide the information rather than, having, what may be construed as a conversation or group conversation outside of the public body. Does that make sense for everyone?
So good examples of that is when he's posted top documents, I'll come up with the right word here, for us to review, and then we post our comments. And we can go back and forth within that, but then when it comes to the meeting time, then we are going to review those
Right.
comments, so that
Yeah.
that becomes part of that public record.
Right.
So that's sort of
So we're not
tool.
responding to comments that were already put in?
You're responding to the comments, but all of that then gets reviewed.
Okay.
In the
If you
meeting.
look,
Yeah.
the sequence
Right.
is there that he'll
Or
show that.
when we're drafting a letter, ultimately that letter is then discussed in our public meeting here
Yeah.
for the public to see. And yeah, more of what we're trying to rein in or make sure that everyone's aware of is that we want to avoid the, back and forth conversational topics that, wouldn't make it back into, or if they're adjacent to and not about any, specific agenda item, but should be because it's public business. So, yeah, just trying to keep that in mind. I'm not saying that there was, any topics or emails that haven't been brought back into the public body or into the public meeting. It's just a notification since we haven't really made this explicitly clear in any of our other meetings, so.
And that was the reason that we formatted the work sessions, because at one point in time, we
Oh,
said,
sure,
hey,
yeah.
can we just get together and work on this, and then we can bring back a finished product? And the team got together and said, no, but we can provide you with a work session format, which is when we kind of all sit together and face each other.
Yeah, so it's where the tables are brought in closer and, yeah.
But it does, I know for those of us that have had lives in business and industry, it feels very, very slow. And that's, and I think we just have to deal with the cadence. We deal with the fact that we get to meet once a month, and that's when our discussions happen.
Right. All right.
But we make progress,
Yeah.
so.
And I know that there was a question about the max numbers of members for the committee and the town board resolution. Can't quite remember. It was sometime in the last year, but they made the maximum number of the EECC 9 total members. We're sitting at 7. But as far as I'm aware, there's no request from the town board, or there hasn't been any postings for new members at this time. So, but yeah, that could change. Roy, you?
The website needs to be updated.
Oh, that it says it's
yes,
a
it says a
5-member
five-member.
body.
Yeah,
Yes.
I will request that that's changed.
Yes.
Thank you, Roy.
Good catch.
All right.
Okay, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that review.
All right.
Can I have a question.
Yes.
In the past, I know that the old Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee had a non-voting student member, but it hasn't been proposed. Oh, no, we could potentially have a student member.
Yes.
Potentially. Okay. Okay.
The last I heard, I believe that when the last posting was advertised, there was consideration of that. I don't know if there was any applicants that fit that criteria, but it's possible if the town board does post an opening that we would consider a student non-voting member, so,
I see.
yeah.
But let me take that sideways, though, for a minute. The Monroe County Environmental Management Council is also currently in the process of forming a student committee. And we've had a couple representatives come in, and it would be very similar, except that they, as a entire group, would form the voting, it would be one vote for the group. But they are going to, when they get it formulated, potentially ask for a representative from each town. So that might be an opportunity in the future for us to pursue.
Does the non-voting member take the place of one of the 9, for instance?
Yes.
Okay.
To my understanding is that that's how it would work, is that they would, be a member, they would be able to participate in meetings. It's just that the voting aspect of it, so, yeah, we'd have to look at it closer if that were to come about, but I wouldn't see.
Well, conceivably, we've had always an odd number, whether it be 5 or 7.
Yes,
So
yeah.
conceivably, you wouldn't, get a tied vote. So if a non-voting person took one of the 9 to only leave 8 voting.
Right.
I was just wondering how that would work.
That's a good point, yeah. We hadn't really discussed that yet, but yeah,
I mean, not that it's an issue at this time, but.
True, yeah. But yeah, that's a good point, is that if one of the chairs is taken by a non-voting member, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll bring that up and obviously have the update made to the website.
Okay.
We were good to move into
Okay, let's
EPOD
do
code
that. The
updates.
EPOD code updates.
So after our last meeting, we had finalized, or we were close to finalizing the letter, and then we just sent out an updated version to the committee members. Everyone signed off on it, said that they were okay with it going to the town board with the amendments that we made based on the input from the EECC. Town board received that. New York Ag and Markets got back to us. They completed the review and concluded that the town could adopt the amendment as written. They did ask that the town recognize that farm operations enrolled in the ag district should be accommodated in various ways in the requests to support or advance their agricultural pursuits. So it's more of a general statement to the town to consider this in any actions that occur or any decisions that may impact ag districts or individuals with property in the ag districts. So there wasn't any pointed comments on it, and essentially, they said that we could adopt it as written. And so the town board approved the EPOD code amendment at their March 5th meeting.
You did do a slight tweak to it since we had reviewed it to reflect the wetlands.
Yes.
map.
So as of January 1st, 2025, DEC's regulatory protections of freshwater wetlands will no longer be limited to wetlands depicted on the New York State freshwater wetlands maps. So I can pull that up here. So essentially, prior to this, or let me first pull up our town EPOD maps, because that shows what the prior New York State wetland mapping looked like. Previously, you had the jurisdictional wetlands, which were at minimum, they were 5 acres or more in size. And they had the 100-foot buffer and then a 500-foot check zone. And our EPOD included that entire area, the wetland, the 100-foot buffer, and the 500-foot check zone. And let me just get those turned on here.
What occurs when it's less than 5 acres?
So prior to that, prior to this new mapping or this update to the freshwater wetlands regulations, you would have wetlands of unusual importance, I believe is the term that they say. And so those areas, they were unmapped, and you would essentially be subject to deciding on your own or through the advice of, a environmental consultant, and whether or not there would be a wetland there, and determine whether or not you should get a jurisdictional determination from the DEC. But generally speaking, when a developer or a landowner would go to, if their action were subject to seeker, you would go through and go through that application process, and it would look at the data that the DEC had for their jurisdictional mapping, and if it was outside of the wetland, then you were good to go. And now it's getting essentially the DEC mapping still has this area, the previously mapped jurisdictional wetlands, and then they also have this new layer that is informational wetlands. And again, essentially the DEC no longer maps where their jurisdictional wetlands are, because they're not limited to that jurisdiction. Anywhere that there could be a wetland, they have jurisdiction over that, essentially. Now, those smaller wetlands, they do appear, let me see if earlier today the environmental resource mapper wasn't showing these two layers. Let me see if it's working now.
So at the end of the day, though, the larger projects for, that require, any kind of town input require seeker, don't they? And isn't a wetland delineation required under seeker?
Yeah, so.
You can't just go in and do the map.
Essentially, the town cannot accept an application for a building permit or EPOD permit, site plan or subdivision until they have that jurisdictional delineation from the New York State DEC that says there isn't a wetland there.
Right.
And prior to that, you could say, like, okay, the DEC mapping shows where this is. I generally understand that there shouldn't be a wetland there. But now it's it's more on the burden of the applicant to determine whether or not there could be jurisdictional wetlands there, and then request that there be they get their JD letter, their jurisdictional delineation, and determine once they have that, then they can come before the town and get that permit.
So it's more robust on the part of the state, but it changed the wording in the EPOD in terms of that. So the
Yes.
state has basically said, yes, there's lovely lines on a map, but don't assume that only those are wetlands. We're going to assume, and it's a very long list of assumptions, which basically say, if you're in an urban district where there's stormwater runoff, you have to assume you live in a wetland. It's like very strange wording. I mean, it was pretty much, it felt very all-inclusive almost as you read it. So it's way more robust in terms of the requirements to demonstrate that you are or are not in a wetland.
So in a way, is the developer being asked to prove a negative? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's what I'm
Yes.
looking at, okay.
And
I mean, interpreting it as.
Yes, and yeah, I guess that ultimately the main case that why Cynette brought it up is just that this altered the language within the EPOD code. I'm just wanting to pull up where our wetland, I can't find it.
I think wetlands before woodland, but yeah.
Yeah, so previously it was very specific of, shall include wetland areas designated as type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4 by New York State DEC. And now, let me pull up. So this is where the current EPOD code, let me make sure. We wanted to make sure that the EPOD code that we were adopting reflected that the New York State DEC mapping no longer is jurisdictional. It's essentially all of those areas that is approximately could be a wetland. And so I'm just going to pull up the language that we finally did accept with the EPOD adoption. But essentially, we wanted to make sure that And the other thing too is that our wetland EPOD includes not just the New York State wetlands, but the National Wetland Index from the federal government, or specifically it's U.S. Fish and Wildlife that creates those maps, and our standards for that haven't changed. We still include those within our EPOD. And so it's mainly this, so the new language is that the official Town of Penfield EPOD map shall include the approximate location of jurisdictional wetland areas identified by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So we're allowing for those informational wetlands to be included within our EPOD mapping. We're still working out the process in which we want to update the mapping. Hoping that we'll have more of an understanding at our next meeting. I can share with the next steps for updating the town's EPOD maps with the new updates to the EPOD code. So I don't have the latest on that, but just wanted to notify you that there was a slight tweak to the language of the EPOD code that you guys had recommended to the town board, and this was it.
So Matt, if I understand just where the town is at now with the new freshwater law and regulations in place, and I don't know if it's actually reflected exactly in that, but the language that's at least on the screen there, but for any kind of site plan approval, any kind of town approval that involves development, the town is requiring a JD from DEC?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's you
have to start with a wetland delineation, like a formal delineation, and then that'll determine if you need a JD.
So like if we have a wetland delineation, we've got some wetland, it's not on a map, then we need to go get a JD? Is that what the town's requiring?
The town's EPOD requirements requires you to comply with the New York State DEC requirements. So if the DEC requirements say that you need a JD letter to get this permit, then yes. So we're following in step. And that was something that we didn't have to change in the code. We already require that you have to comply with the New York State DEC standards. So
that's not necessarily reflected in the EPOD code, but that's reflected in the rest of the town code.
Developer.
Yeah, so the section just before it, the town will defer to state wetland regulations set forth in New York State Environmental Conservation Law, as well as federal wetland permitting requirements as established by the United States Army Corps of Engineers. So yes, I mean, even though the freshwater wetland requirements have changed by the New York State DEC, it doesn't necessarily require a change to the rest of our code, because we already say that you have to follow the New York State DEC standards. So one thing that we wanted to modify was just the boundaries, because as we saw, there's a very specific language of like it has to be a type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4, and essentially there aren't those types provided in the informational wetland mapping anymore. So yes, in short, that's kind of what we're going with.
So if somebody types in their address into the GIS viewer, it'll show exactly what their property is listed as, type 1 through 4?
Not anymore.
No.
Not anymore?
Not anymore.
No. So again, you'll have to consult the DEC regulations. And this has been coming across, residents have been coming to planning department, engineering department, and we've been deferring them to the New York State DEC regs to figure out where exactly their first step is. But generally speaking, if there is then informational wetland in their area, or if there's a previously mapped jurisdictional wetland, then yes, we're telling them go ahead and get your JD letter. And then same for if you're not quite sure, then you should at least look at those regulations, start consulting with the DEC, and see if that's necessary. Because ultimately, it's the DEC may not require you to do an actual wetland delineation, they may see that, okay, of all the information that we have about this area, a wetland delineation isn't required. So there's several steps to the actual process that you have to go through in order to get your permits. But if the DEC says that the delineation isn't required, then that's your JD letter essentially saying that you don't have to get the permit, or you don't have to get wetland delineation, and then you can go ahead with the permitting process.
Okay.
And if you do, then they go on to seeker?
No, that's not, it's two different things. I mean, not all actions require seeker review.
Okay.
So, but there are actions that may occur or would be considered regulated activities within a wetland area. So, yeah.
I think at this point, most developers understand that they need to get a wetland delineation before they submit anything to a
Right.
board.
I guess I don't mean to confuse this too much about the new freshwater wetland regulations. And Ari, maybe this question is actually directed to you, but if a developer gets a wetland delineation, identifies wetlands, but the developer's consultant decides that they're probably not state jurisdictional wetlands, could they submit that to the town?
No.
You need something from DEC, is what you're
Yes.
saying? Got it.
Yeah, there has to be the
Yes.
DC has to be involved in some
Yes.
capacity. And they are backed up right now because of this new reg, so you got to settle in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, okay. Did that summarize the code? I think that summarized the code updates, and they were,
Just to note that the woodland EPOD replacement policy is also on the town's website. So again, the EPOD code is in the new laws section. It will soon, when Ecode 360 is updated, they'll incorporate the EPOD code and the res code actually embedded into the code right now. They're just kind of appended in this new laws section. But the actual EPOD replacement policy is there for anyone to view, and it's in that section of the website where our design and construction specifications, the sidewalk policy, essentially all of the application materials that developers or residents would have to look at, we point them to that section, and any of those policies or procedures and applications are there for them to look at.
and I'll just give a kudos to you as a committee for the formation of that. I did share that with the last Monroe County Environmental Management Council, and several municipalities are quite jealous that we managed to get a woodland replacement policy put in place. So very well done. They're going to be clamoring on our website for the wording of it. You'll see the hits, whatever it's called, right? It'll be
Nice.
trending. Okay, the next item for discussion is the Arbor Day celebration.
Yeah, so promotion-wise, we were looking to, go down the same route. So we've got, or the signs will be ordered soon. There was an issue with the resolution we sent them, but ultimately we're going to have those ordered and have them ready by early April, so they'll be put out throughout the town. And the Tree City USA flag, I know, Pat, at the last meeting you had mentioned, like, can we have, signage,
Poster.
a poster or something? The idea is that we would have the Tree City USA flag hanging from the tent. I mean, obviously, one thing we didn't really consider is that if weather is not great, we won't have a tent inside, so we'll have to, pin something up so that we could have the flag displayed at our table. But,
Okay.
yeah, we will have the flag there, and
Okay.
definitely show off our Tree City USA status. And then we received from the Arbor Day Foundation 2 Tree City USA street signs, and we're working with the Department of Public Works to figure out the best places in town to set those, and also determine if we want to order more. We also, before Sarah went out, she submitted a grant with the Genesee Finger Lakes chapter of the Air and Waste Management Association for a grant of $1,000 that would be put towards additional tree plantings at Rothus Park. We initially allocated funds towards 6 red maples that we planted at Rothfuss Park. If we get this grant, then we'd get an additional 6 white oaks.
Oh, so you are
that we're-
diversifying.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
So we're hoping to hear back in the next couple weeks of whether or not we've been awarded that grant. But yeah, at the very least, we will have the 6 red maples planted at Rothfuss Park. Yeah, that's, I guess the one thing, if we go into the progress document, I can show kind of the materials that I've added to that related to the Arbor Day celebration.
Could I ask,
Yeah.
do you know how much those signs would be as far as ordering additional?
We're ordering 10, the same numbers we had last year.
No, the street sign, I'm sorry.
Oh, the street sign.
Sorry,
I want to say they were like $70 per sign. It's on their website.
Oh, I was just wondering.
Yeah. Yeah, we have to figure out where we want to pick areas at the extent of town, but also high trafficked areas. Generally, those are state and county roads. So trying to figure out, how we can coordinate with those agencies on putting up our signs within their right of way. And if we really just want these signs up before Arbor Day, do we put them on local roads with the understanding that eventually we'll put them up on those main corridors? So yeah, these are the discussions that we're having with DPW. So eventually we hope to have those up soon.
Okay, you're calling up the progress document, right?
Yeah,
That's what, okay.
Sorry. Actually, you know what I'll do is I'll pull up the Arbor Day website too.
Okay, that works too.
Was everyone able to look at the Arbor Day? I mean, specifically, I think the big additions were the tree species, and we have pretty much the same format of tree planting guides that we had last year. It's the same seedling planting tips page. Roy, I know that last year you had additional comments for residents, but is there anything you'd want added to these documents, or no?
No, I think I think they're fine.
Okay. The other thing is that last year, we primarily, our table was the shrub table. You came over and EECC member would greet you and you'd get your shrub. We'd tell you about the shrub, and we'd hand you the educational materials about planting. But is there any other educational materials that we think that should be at our table? Are there any other items about native plants or anything else that we think that would be worthwhile to share at the table?
Had our native planting guide finished by this
Sure.
point in time, but we
Right.
don't have that yet.
No.
Can we do, there's a lot of invasive species in our area, make people aware of those as well?
And I don't think it wouldn't hurt. I remember that, and I've lost his name, the gentleman that was on our committee before that was promoting the spotted lanternfly information.
Yeah,
Daniel Moore,
Jim.
yeah.
Dan-
Well, Daniel Moore was
Yes,
the
yes.
committee member that had
Daniel was-
mentioned that.
yes.
Yeah, I believe that we may have, or
Some
I
of
think
those
maybe
cards
the DEC
or those
provides
sort of
those.
things. Yes.
So yeah, we can look into having materials on invasive
Especially
species.
with it being
and those.
spring, to
Yeah.
look for those
Yeah.
egg patches.
And I think in terms of the handing out the information, we had the QR code available so that
Yeah.
we didn't have to hand paper to everybody.
Yeah, I think that's, what we'd like to encourage. I mean, I think that a lot of people liked the paper and having both options, but yeah, being able to cut down on any paper waste, material waste would be great. So if we have the QR codes available, we will. And the QR codes for the planting guides, but also any invasive species or education materials. So I can look on my end, but if any of you find any educational materials that I think would be relevant to have at the table, send them my way. We can discuss at the next meeting and have those kind of prepped and staged for, yeah, because the next meeting is the last one before this
But
event.
it'll
So
still
we'd
be
like to
good
have
timing.
kind of everything that we want at the table kind of prepared and all that. But
Yeah, so, I mean, we could, if we have something for butterfly, pollinator-friendly gardening, any of that kind of stuff that we'd like to put together.
Yeah.
I mean, it would definitely be appropriate for this event.
One other thing, and this isn't exactly in line with that, but what might be interesting to have would be a copy of the EPOD maps to actually educate people about what EPODs are and how we protect them in Penfield and what our committee does as far as EPODs go.
Okay. Yeah, I think as we have our discussions about when we will be applying the updates to the EPOD maps, we'll see if those are finalized before. But at the very least, I think just having, if we're not able to have a final, draft of what the EPOD map updates are, at the very least, we can have an explanation of what the town's EPODs are and kind of promote understanding. And again, the mission of this committee is to educate people and also have that review and the responsibility to review EPOD. So making people more aware of it, I think, is worthwhile pursuit.
But I do like your idea, actually having a computer and we can call up the map and somebody can say, oh, let me see where I live and,
I do like
what's
that,
near
yeah.
it. And, I mean, it just might be fun to be able to do.
Yeah.
I don't think it's.
If we're outside, yeah, we may be able to, yeah, I'm not sure how we.
Get a hotspot.
We have a tablet that we use for field collection, but yeah, it'd be one thing we can look into that. Yeah, and then yeah, I mean we could also yeah, potentially have printed maps just to give people a general idea.
I want to hold the map.
The whole, yeah.
The big map, the big one.
It's really big.
That's right,
map.
unfurl it.
Yeah, yeah, like a flag-sized map. No, yeah, it's definitely something we can look at, and I think, yeah, the idea of having a tablet that has the maps on there, or really like the public GIS viewer, I think, that has, actually shows where the boundaries are, would be a really effective tool for communicating that.
The reason why I say that I think that would be helpful is because I think I could speak intelligently about EPODs, but if someone has me explain what an Eastern Road redbud is, it's going to be clear. I don't know what the heck I'm talking about.
Well, that's what the information sheets come in
Yeah,
handy.
exactly,
So
yeah.
we expect you to read it and memorize it
Yeah.
before the day.
Right.
Can I, since we are a member of that monarch preservation committee, why don't we have some information on how to help encourage the pollinator communities, stop using pesticides or use eucalyptus or natural pesticides. Don't clean out your garden until May because all that growth is where their larvae are living right now. So I don't know, do we have something like that we can put out, or maybe a QR code?
I mean, if we haven't, I mean, I can say that we didn't prepare that for last year's Arbor Day event, but I'd imagine that the Mayor's Monarch Pledge website may have materials like that. And so, yeah, we can consult that, and also any DEC materials.
I was
that
gonna
they
say,
may
Maybe
have.
highlight it and let
Between
people
the
know.
DEC and the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and yeah, I think.
I know a lot of people don't know a lot of that information.
Yeah.
I've talked to neighbors, and they're just like, what? I'm not supposed to, they're all scraping out their gardens with, and I'm like, no. So it's helpful maybe to educate everyone.
Right. So Healthy Yards Penfield will, I'm 95% sure, will be there and sharing all that information. They're also pitching the Pollinator Pathway Program to the town board on April 2nd. So obviously no decisions have been made yet, but we're hoping that that could be something that will be like on its way by the time the Arbor Day celebration rolls around. So these are possibilities which we'll know more about later at our next EECC
Okay.
meeting.
So I guess it sounds like it would be good for us to know what educational information they're providing so that we supplement and don't necessarily duplicate.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Sure.
So that would be great.
It is great to have the town saying this is a good thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
it's the
True.
it's the Arbor Day celebration, but it's also like
Yeah.
we read the Mayor's Monarch Pledge there. It's all part of the proclamation. The Arbor Day proclamation includes the town's commitment to Tree City USA, the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and then also acknowledges the benefits of EVs. So that I did send to the town's communications coordinator just before this, so that will be ready for, obviously, the town board to read into the record at their town board meeting, and then also they'll be read at the event. But yeah, I mean, the event is not just the, tree or shrub giveaway, it's the town's commitment to Tree City USA, the mission of that, and then the Mayor's Monarch Pledge as well. So the tabling is, yes, giving away the trees, but it's also an opportunity for the committee to engage the residents about those through their mission statement and those things that that this committee is trying to be stewards of. So
I wonder if the Transportation Committee would be interested in tabling with the idea that they could be talking to the community about their active transportation plan that's coming and
I
maybe
know
getting
that
ideas.
we're meeting with, I believe, town staff is meeting with the active transportation consultant, I believe sometime in the next week. And there was the thought that the consultant would be organizing a presence for them to be collecting information at this. I mean, not just, it's a large community event, but it's the EV car show. So a lot of, people interested in transportation are going to be there. So yes, it's certainly a possibility that if not the Transportation Committee, then the town's consultant for the active transportation plan would be there.
And then, just like that, we're planning the climate action plan or the carbon mitigation plan for Penfield. Is there anything that could be done to either educate or get feedback?
I think that slightly skipping ahead to, well, no, we're kind of working on the progress document as well. I'm sorry, I wasn't able to log in, but two of the topics that I'm adding into speakers is the potential to have the Monroe County's Sustainability Coordinator come and speak with us about the county's climate action plan. And so I think that if we wanted to provide materials at the EECC table that is just educating people about that plan.
Madison Quinn is planning to be at the event.
Okay, yeah, so that would be, I would think, the point of contact for anybody to go and get information about the county's plan. And at this point,
Considering having her come and talk in May.
Yes.
So that would be after this, so not necessarily.
right, and I
Our
think
materials.
we're still very much in the early stages of drafting our RFP. We're using the county's Phase 1 RFP to kind of inform how we're going about that. But I don't know clearly, like if you have people asking about, is the town pursuing an active the climate action plan, we can tell them that the town has received grant funds for it and that the town has allocated funds towards it. But at this time, we're still very much early in the RFP stage, and that part of the development of the climate action plan, similar to how we've set out our RFP for the active transportation plan, is that a big portion of it, or a main goal of it, is to solicit feedback from the public, having public information and public participation throughout to get feedback. So yes, I would imagine that while we may not be prepared at this time. The town isn't prepared at this time to start collecting the feedback. But once we have actually sent out that RFP, have a consultant working with us, then I think that'd be more the time to really start ramping up the town's collection of input from Penfield residents.
Okay.
Yeah.
A few months ago, we talked about how, there's a disadvantage for not being a climate smart community and that we don't have a plaque that tells the public that we are making this commitment, but I think this is a great opportunity to share with the public in a pretty, it gets some pretty good foot traffic, and to just share those commitments as often, as loudly as possible.
Sure,
In
yeah.
replacement of a plaque.
Yeah.
And then to kind of piggyback on, though, is to also see if we can have a speaker come and talk about the organics management plan.
Yeah.
Would be the other one. And that survey, I believe, still might be open at that point in time. And I kind of didn't take note of that date for right now as to
I think
when.
it was
in May.
open into May, but, I tried to click on it today, and it wouldn't, I don't know, my computer
Okay.
might be acting up, but the link wasn't working for
But it
me.
might be fun to even just have a QR code or something for that plan there, so that people that are coming
Yeah,
can
absolutely.
actually know how to provide their feedback for that.
Yeah. Yeah, so we didn't receive, or I should say that the planning board didn't receive any applications for town development projects for April, so we're already, planning ahead and looking at getting a speaker for the April meeting related to organics management plan. If that isn't able to happen, then we may look at other speaker opportunities. And then, yes, May would be the time that we're trying to slot in the county's representative for the climate action plan. That was, everyone, did everyone like the changes to the progress document, having more of a discussion page? I realize that it may look pretty empty right now, but you all have the ability to edit it, and I'll be making more updates as I have more materials to add into it. Yeah, I thought that having just direct links to those pages where you can get to any progress that's been made on any one topic will be useful going forward.
Is that progress document part of our page on the town?
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's really a draft document only for EECC to put their information down and track progress on any one topic. It's not a, it's really just our own working document. It's not for public consumption.
Okay, the only reason I'm asking is because the supplemental sections where you've added the links that say, here's the CSC presentation, on this, like the Climate Smart Community presentation, here's that.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I think I was envisioning when we talked about updates to the website to really showcase the different things that we had been working on,
Okay.
some of this. And so that's what I was thinking, if the areas where we've had conversations, I love the breakdown of this document. And I'm sorry you can't open it, because
Well,
I have it open here. That's.
If I pull up I'll just go to the EECC page. I think there is an opportunity to kind of and again, this is all subject to working with the town's website team, but there's certain sections of the websites where instead of, there's the presentations video archive, but if we were to have something more even if you go to our agendas and minutes page, if it was more instead of 2025, this would be a particular topic, and then it would drop down,
Yes.
and you would have, so sounds like that's what you would hope that the
Right. So in
either the
this case,
EECC page or the sustainability
Yeah.
page would have something
Something like that.
Yeah.
So for example, the one that I did call the clean energy community actions, you have the list of the CEC high impact, you have additional CEC opportunities. We could have that list of, here's the ones that we've accomplished, so that it's kind of really concrete information on
Sure.
what it is that we've done.
Yeah.
So I think that would add a lot of visibility to the work that we've done, as well as engage the public into, oh, they did look at that, and
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, so we can think of it that way, is that the progress document is an area where we can flesh out our ideas and also document what we've done, and then that information can help us make updates to the website, so,
yeah.
yeah. All right.
Okay, and that document is for us to make notes on, just so that we're
Not even
aware
notes, I mean,
that-
you all have edit access
Yes.
to, yeah, and if you have any issues with it, email me and I can make sure that you've got the right access and walk you through editing any of it, but, yeah.
Okay, is there any other old business? Okay.
No, not that I
I do have a quick question.
Yes.
For when it comes to the Arbor Day celebration,
we
for the
didn't
seedlings, do we have any resources for anybody that's physically unable to plant their own seedling in their house, to be able to say like, hey, here's somebody you can go to for a fee to have it planted in your yard or your property?
I can't think of any services it's not like we don't have, public works employees that would be able to go out. I do know, it's kind of unfortunate that it's the same exact day as our event, but Good Neighbor Day is an event that offers that kind of services for residents. There is materials on the town's website that describes the event, but ultimately you can request to either volunteer to help with individuals throughout the town that need, yard work done, or just things around general maintenance around their properties. And you can also request if you need that type of help done on that day. And so it is on the 26th, and it would be, a potential collaboration maybe in the future where, if we partner with Good Neighbor Day to, assist with planting things on residents' yards. I mean, obviously, we would request if they want that done. But if that's, potential opportunity for that. But no, it's not something that we've looked at in the past of offering that type of service.
Gotcha. Would it be inappropriate to recommend maybe a local business for a potential fee, or is that kind of conflict of interest with the board?
I need more information on where the funding for that would come from.
Gotcha.
EECC has a budget, but ultimately all of that, the budget for that is going towards the action items that, it's going towards putting on this Arbor Day event so that we can qualify for Tree City USA. It goes towards, training for the EECC members that, may be required and things like that. And so, yeah, we'd have to look at that, but I think that ultimately that would be, I'm thinking of the questions the town board may have, and obviously it's a benefit to those members of the community that can't participate in this explicitly for, they just don't have the capacity to plant them on their own. It's not something we've looked at in the past, and I struggle a bit with how we'd bring that to the town board if
Right.
there's some type of, I think we'd have to, depending on the cost of that associated with that, we may have to go out to an RFP or, things like that, so.
Our church has a committee of creation care team, and we actually had been talking about the Good Neighbor Day, and we're urging parishioners to sign up for it, but I could see in the future, because we're always scouting for projects, if we could gather youth or parishioners, and I could see, something in the future, but it's not, not possible at this time.
Yeah, no, both events are, less than or about a month away now. So, yeah, but yeah, I think it's something, again, we haven't considered in the past, but it's definitely an interesting topic that I could see, having trying to make the event more inclusive would be something that the town board could see being a benefit, so.
Okay. And we've had scout troops before, there are Penfield scout troops that maybe it would be
Reach out to the
something.
scouts would probably be one of those things.
Sure.
There's a lot of civic organizations that would probably love to do that.
But meanwhile, the actual Arbor Day celebration, let's just make sure that we've recapped that it's from 10 to noon.
Yes.
Or until the trees run out. Hopefully, I think we'd still stay till noon with the car show running from 10 to 2. Correct? And we're planning on the proclamation
Yeah, so
from the town supervisor to be made approximately 10:05 a.m. with a brief introduction into that, and that should include the car show introduction as well at that point in time. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the intro acknowledges the Arbor Day celebration, and it has the introduction to the town supervisor and just the opportunities of that day to learn more about the Arbor Day Foundation, Tree City USA, Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and the benefits of EVs.
Okay, and the rec department is really facilitating the setup and tear down, but you would like us, those of us that can attend that day there, approximately half hour early? Was that
Yeah,
what I
so,
wrote down? 9:30-ish?
Yeah, 9:30 would be great. Essentially, again, I won't be there. We're planning on Amy Owens. She's the town junior engineer. She'll be there as the staff support from our department, and she's hoping to be at our next meeting. She won't attend the entire meeting, but she'll at least come down so you can see her and meet her for once and know who's your point of contact for the town on that day. And we'll have bins for each of the seedlings. So you'll have a white spruce, red bud, and a red maple one. And you'll have some of them already pre-bagged in paper bags individually. And then in that first half hour, there will be more for you guys to bag up. But kind of with how the event went last year, there wasn't, an immediate run at our table. I mean, obviously, there's also the proclamation being read. So while that's being done, we can have you guys bagging some of those and continue, and then throughout the day, just bagging more and more and handing them out and providing those materials. So yeah, that first half hour is more just kind of getting our bearings, setting things up, getting the table and the tent. I mean, obviously, this is all with the understanding that we'll be outside. If we're inside, then we're in the community center at a table and essentially handing out the same things. And we'll work on, because last year, even though we were outside and then we moved inside, we'll have to figure out, like, if the weather is looking really poorly, where the town supervisor makes the proclamation. Because last year we had that portion outside, but ultimately I think we'd want to do it in that community room where everyone was tabling at. So, yeah.
Okay, and then just as a real, I'm able to attend this year. Both of you are planning on it?
I'm planning on being there.
Maybe. Not
You're a
sure yet.
maybe?
Okay.
You're going to be there, but you're going to be very, very, very busy? Okay,
Yeah, and I have a conflict with
Okay.
that date.
I'm a maybe.
you're a maybe,
Flying
okay.
in late.
Okay.
So that sounds like at least we'll have some good representation.
Yeah, right.
And I'm very
Absolutely.
excited, because I've missed this ever since I've been part of any of the town committees, so.
I think that we had at least 3, but we also had Sarah there and
Yes.
Matt
Yeah.
the whole time last
Right.
So
year.
we'll have Amy,
We'll
so.
have Amy.
Amy
okay.
will be there, and then I know of at least one other town staff member that is planning on, Amy is definitely committed, but I think that depending on how many EECC members were going to be in attendance, this one staff member said that they would also be available. So I'll get back to the staff members and let them
And
know
we'll
how many.
have the April meeting just to kind of confirm as well.
Exactly.
Because we had
yeah.
at least 3 of us.
Yep, so
right,
we have- we
including
have
your
3.
daughter.
Yeah,
And
including
it
my
sounds like
daughter.
that's what
Yeah.
you've got this time.
Yep, to do that. Okay, for the sake of time?
Can I add just a couple of things
Yes.
about the
Oh,
EV car show?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
perfect. That's what I wanted you to do.
Thank you. So it's much more than an EV car show. I mean, in addition to the Arbor Day celebration, we have a whole lot of clean energy businesses that will be there, specializing in electric lawn care, electricians, solar, heat pumps, et cetera. There's also, but it's also kid-friendly. We have a kid zone, and the Penfield Recreation opens their lunch counter, and they'll have some plant-based options. And RTS is bringing their hydrogen bus, which is so cool.
Ooh, very cool.
And I just confirmed yesterday that Penfield Central School District will have one of their electric school buses there. So lots of really fun opportunities to learn so much. Oh, and so the website is rockevshow.org, ROCEVSHOW, and you can learn more about who's going to be there, and then you can register. If you have an electric car and you want to share your experience with folks, we'd love to have you. If you want to kick some tires and talk to owners and dealers, it's a great opportunity.
Okay, good. And then did you have anything else that you wanted to add regarding the community campaigns? I think you got to cover those fairly well.
I did, except we're very, very close. We have 5 more EV purchases, and we know that they're out there. They just have to have been purchased since 2021, October 2021. So can you go to the website on the town page? If you have purchased, it has to be a purchase, not a lease, but if you've purchased an EV since October of 2021, you can help the town earn $10,000, I think, in New York State grants for sustainability work. Here's the website, a web page on the town's website. Yeah, we're 5 away, and we have Al Hibner, who's going to be walking around at the EV car show asking folks if they are Penfield residents and if they've purchased an EV. And also heat pumps would help us qualify for the other community campaign grant. So heat pump water heaters or space heater heat pumps. Did I say all the right words?
Right words.
Heat pump water heaters or air source heat pumps or ground source heat pumps all would qualify for this grant.
Yeah, so this is an example of something that I think that even if there's 10 tables all talking about this submission form, it's all to the benefit of residents. So we can duplicate this as much as we want and tell people and ask people as much as we can that we're really looking for these submission forms.
Yes, so this is something that should be at our table as well.
Okay, good. Do we have any other new business?
The one thing that I wanted to share was the addendum to the design and construction criteria for the town. I'll just pull that up really quick. So the town board did approve the addendum to the town's design and construction specifications, and it's listed on the town's website. If you go to documents and the applications and permits page, essentially this is exactly where this document was before, under planning board applications and construction, and the Town of Penfield design and construction specifications. If you notice on the cover page, it says the approved addendum, March 5th, 2025, and the addendum is the very last page, and this is where this initial renewable energy systems decommissioning plan and the decommissioning fund are now incorporated into these design specifications. Now, again, we've mentioned that this is not the only change that's going to be happening. Town staff are still drafting a more comprehensive update to these specifications, and ultimately, we'll continue reviewing that and looking for any other ways that the new additions to the code, whether it be EPODs, renewable energy systems, or even the town tree law, how those have impacted what should be in the town's design and construction specs.
Is this standard text? Did this come from recommended text from New York State?
Yeah. NYSERDA had some guidelines on what should be in a renewable energy systems decommissioning plan. I think that it was specifically taken from solar recommendations that they had for that, but we felt that the criteria or the requirements within this decommissioning plan were effective for any of the renewable energy systems that we mentioned in the res code.
Okay. Thank you for making that happen.
Yeah.
That's good.
And yeah, that's all I had for other new business.
Okay. Given that, just notice that our next meeting is April 10th in 2025. That's the year that we're in. It's very good. And at this point in time, I will call this meeting of the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee closed.